Welcome to Urban Agriculture Field Experiences, Lesson 2 of the Intro to Urban Agriculture, The Science of Seeds, offered by the Lehigh County Conservation District with support from the National Association of Conservation Districts, the Ryder Pool Foundation, and the Harry C. Trexler Trust. Seeds are the tiny packages of plant genetic information protected by outer coatings that allow, when planted, for the growth of new plants. Within each seed is a tiny embryo or baby plant. Seeds can be smaller than a pinhead or as large as a coconut. The Coco de Muere seed, a type of palm, holds the record as the largest seed on Earth, weighing in at nearly 40 pounds. When holding a handful of radish seeds, you actually have about 500 baby radishes in your hand all at once. Seeds grow into plants that serve as food, fiber, and timber. They become plants that produce oxygen and sequester carbon dioxide. A plant's roots can filter pollution from the environment and prevent erosion by holding soil in place. In a world of climate change and fluctuation, it is important to understand how vital seeds are and how crucial it is to preserve seed diversity, to bank and store seeds in preparation for future changes. You may wonder about what conditions are necessary for a seed to sprout or germinate. Adequate moisture and warmth are the two main components required to kickstart a seed. Germination will occur when a seed comes into contact with water and it becomes rehydrated. The outer coating splits and the internal taproot of the seed will emerge and head downward because of the Earth's gravitational pull. Through this root and the root system it will eventually develop into, the plant will be able to access more water and a continued supply of surrounding nutrients. The nutrients contained within the seed initially fuel a sprout to grow towards a light source. When the light source is accessed by the new seedling, leaves begin to develop and the plant begins photosynthesizing and producing food for itself. When moisture and heat conditions are sufficiently met, a seed can sprout quite quickly, even overnight. Classrooms with windows, particularly those facing south, are great for starting seeds. Though, seeds can be grown in a classroom without natural sunlight as well, as long as a room is warm enough and there is access to a grow light, and eventually soil or plant nutrients. Currently, it is the Silene stenophila seed that holds the record for the oldest seed that has remained viable. It was found about 120 meters under the Siberian frost line among other seeds in a cache created by an Arctic squirrel. Carbon dating allows scientists to determine that the seed was more than 32,000 years old. Finding seeds preserved beneath the permafrost proves that we have natural seed vault preservation potential in colder areas of your world. Seed science and plant genetics are critical 21st century green-collar career paths that we know are crucial to solving issues created by climate change, disease cure and prevention, world hunger, and unique growing technologies needed here on Earth as well as for space travel. Tonight, 33 million children in our world will go to bed hungry, and scientists believe that one of our greatest challenges in the next 30 years will be feeding the 9 billion humans projected to reside on Earth by 2050. To meet this challenge, food production will have to double that of what it is today. Learning all we can about seeds and the potential of the plants they develop into will be a key element in future development of food production. Lesson Plan 2: The Science of Seeds. A seed is a material used for planting so that regeneration of a plant can occur. The outer coating of a seed that protects it until it is ready to germinate is called a seed coat. When the seed coat splits, a taproot emerges to anchor the seed. Next, a sprout emerges with two oval-shaped leaves. These leaves are called cotyledons. These young leaves are responsible for allowing the plant to begin photosynthesizing. When the plant grows a bit, it will develop true leaves that are characteristic of that plant. Monocots are flowering plants with petals in multiples of 3, leaves with parallel veins, a spread-out root system, stems and vascular bundles all around, and one cotyledon food source per seed. Dicots are flowering plants with petals in multiples of 4 or 5 netted veined leaves, one taproot, vascular bundles around the outside edge of plants, and 2 cotyledon food sources per seed. Count the petals on this flower. Is it a monocot or a dicot? How do you know? Now look at the vein pattern on this maple leaf. Is it a monocot or a dicot, and how do you know? A gymnosperm is a plant that has unprotected seeds or naked seeds with no fruit or ovary protection. Examples include conifers, mosses, and ferns. These plants produce male and female cones on separate branches. These male cones release pollen. When this pollen comes into contact with female cones, the female seeds become fertilized. Female cones release these seeds and new gymnosperms are planted. An angiosperm is a flowering plant that has seeds protected by a fruit or ovary which is usually within the flower. Examples of this are cacti, grasses, crops, and many trees. A petal is the often colorful part of the flower designed to attract visual pollinators. Some petals will have stripes to direct the insect pollinators towards the center of the flower. Supporting the petal of the flower are the sepals, or calyx, which are the support structures for the petals and what they contain. Within many flowers are the male and female parts to help ensure pollination. The female part of the flower is the pistil. At the top of the pistil is a sticky top known as the stigma. Pollen grains stick to this when they land here. Those grains then travel down the style of the flower to the swollen lower part of the pistil known as the ovary. Here a pollen grain will fertilize the ovule, and a fruit-bearing seeds can be produced. Pollen grains are produced from the male structure of a plant called the stamen. The stamen contains two parts, an anther, where the pollen is made, and a filament that holds the anther. The stem of a plant is often called a pedicel. Which of these flowers is definitely a female? How can you tell? Bolting is when a plant begins to produce flowers and is ready to go to seed. Planting a seed is easy. Simply find a good, open and moist plot of soil that gets sun from the south, turn the soil over to expose the dirt, and prick a small 1/4-inch hole. Plant the seed not too deep so that the sun's rays can reach the seed, and cover it loosely with some soil. Water the new seedling as needed. Earth drops and seed balls, a form of guerrilla gardening that has been around for centuries in Japan and Egypt to combat arid conditions at these parts of the world. It was popularized in the late 1960s to introduce and generate new plants and habitat in urban areas. The Svalbard Global Seed Vault. A global seed vault resource resistant to climate change situated within the Arctic region of Norway. It was designed by scientist Carrie Fowler to house copies of as many species of plants around the world so that resources remain should any man-made or natural disaster strike. It is a lending vault and seeds extracted must be replaced. Students in Urban Ag think about their own lives and what seeds they choose to save when creating their own personal seed vault. Seed science and plant genetics are critical 21st century green-collar career paths that we know are crucial to solving for issues created by climate change, disease cure and prevention, world hunger, and unique growing technologies needed here on Earth and for space travel. During the week of this course, educators can use the vocabulary list and activity lessons to give students background about seeds, seed anatomy, why seeds are important, and the role seeds play in 21st century science. Students will become familiar with the anatomy of a flower during the flower dissection lab. There are an estimated 250,000 different types of flowering plants called angiosperms in the world. These plants have seeds that are produced by their flowers. The flowers have male and female parts. Understanding the male and female structure in plants helps to understand how plants become pollinated and eventually produce fruits that contain seed for future growing. The world and agriculture in general is governed by cycles: the water cycle, various nutrient cycles, light cycles, and the oxygen or carbon dioxide cycle. Going from seed to flower is yet another cycle in nature. During the seed to flower activity, students are given visual cards that have images of each seed to flower phase. In groups, students can work or even race to complete the seed to flower growing cycle. Please enjoy this do-it-yourself video demonstration on creating your own earth drops.
Hi, my name is Jolie Shilek, and thank you for joining me with the Lehigh County Conservation District today as we bring our urban agriculture curriculum to you. We're going to be doing something we call earth drops, which are actually also known in popular culture as seed bombs or seed balls, that sort of thing. And it's a really ancient form of gardening that was discovered in Japan thousands of years ago. They called it tushi dango, which means earth dumplings, and it's simply using clay and some soil and seeds to create a little miniature garden. And then with that garden, you can allow the clay to dry out. So if you have adverse conditions where you're gardening, possibly a place where there's a lot of drought, these seeds are going to be protected through that drought from the heat of the sun by the dried clay and from animals that might eat the seeds up. The seeds will be protected, but then when rain comes along, the soil will degrade around it, actually creating like a little garden, and the sun will come out and the seed will grow. Why do we use clay? Well, hopefully by now you've talked with your students a little bit about soil and its 3 particle sizes. The 3 particle sizes are sand, and silt is, sand is the heaviest, and so it falls out. If you were to do a soil experiment where you took a cup full of soil and put it into a jar with filling the rest of the way up, you can allow it to settle out and you can see the different sizes, size particles of soil. The sand goes to the bottom because it's the heaviest and the largest. The silt particles are medium sized. They go to the the middle layer, and then finally the top layer is the clay. So when we're making seed balls and we're using clay, we're actually using soil. It is an actual garden, just miniature. What do we need to make the seed balls? Some basic supplies that are real easy. You can use any number of different types of seeds. And of course you need some soil, and if it has compost in it, that's really good because the compost will provide the nutrients for the seed when it eventually grows. I also have a few supplies here for if you wanted to actually carry the seed ball growing out in the classroom. You can let these seed balls dry and then go out with your students and scatter them in the spring on a nice day. But you could also prove to them that they work by having a plastic bag or a condiment cup that is eventually going to serve as a growing environment. And I'll talk about that in just a minute. Let's talk about exactly how you make the seed balls. So your clay, you can get that from an art supply store. And this is earthenware clay, and it works really nicely. And all you need to do is take a pinch of it. And I always kind of turn it into a ball to begin with. I tell the students, roll it up into a ball in the palm of your hand. And then I tell them to make it into a bowl and put sort of an indent in it where you can put the ingredients. So some of the first thing that you'd want to put in is the compost. Just a pinch, you really don't need a whole lot. Just a little bit of nutrient to get that seed going when the rain comes and it's time and the clay kind of falls around it. And then you need some seeds. And this is where it gets, the way that you make the ball, the earth drop will vary a little bit depending on what type of seed you need. But since I've made the ball type, or the bowl type rather, we're going to take about 3 sunflower seeds, because sunflower seeds germinate really quickly, and these are actually really great to use with the kids right off the bat because it shows how they work. You put the sunflower seeds in the center, and then you just kind of fold that ball up again, and it's really ready to go. It's pretty simple. Kids can make 5 or 10 of these in a class time period. And so then the decision is, are you going to let it dry so that you can broadcast it in the spring? And if you're going to do that, then it's good to have a place where all the students can dry the seeds. We use a pizza box, and there are some that were made in the fall. But as I said, it's really also very useful. Oops. It's also very useful for them to see them grow in the classroom. And so if you're going to do this over and over, it's probably worth using the plastic to do this. If you only are going to do this one time, maybe you don't want to make all that extra plastic waste, but you can either use the condiment cup or, and then kind of think of it as a greenhouse. And once you put the seed in, add a little water, and then stick it in a windowsill or under a grow light. And in about 4 days, if you use sunflower seeds, you should have a sprout coming out of the seed ball. Same thing if you're going to use a plastic bag as your grow house, then just put a little water in there and the seed ball inside. So how do we use our seed balls? Well, in our urban ag class, our high school class, the students came up with a really good idea to make a little fundraiser with it, and they decided to take 3 or so earth drops and put them inside a bag and then give people ideas for how they could be used. So how do you use them? Well, you could go for a walk in your neighborhood and see where you think the environment would benefit from some plants. And when you scatter the earth balls, you just have to scatter them on top of soil. You don't have to bury them or anything like that. They just need to go into the soil and make contact with the soil, and eventually the rain will come along and do the rest of the work for you. The kids in our class decided to make many different types of seed drops, earth drops. Some of them chose to take tomato seeds and make seed drops that could be put into a garden and then grow tomatoes, and they might put some basil in there as well so that you could have like a nice Italian caprese salad with those plants. Some of them decided to make pollinator seed balls, and that would just be taking flower seeds that would attract, and you'd always want to do native seeds in all of these. So they would take the native seeds and turn them into a seed ball, and you can disperse them anywhere. You could also make a riparian seed ball, and that would be a seed ball that would go along the edges of a river and kind of help with erosion. If you feel like there's a place where the river could use more plantings, a seed ball could be put there, but you need to use plants that are native you need to use seeds that are native to the river area and can tolerate drought and also can tolerate flooding conditions. So it's always good to look into what those seed mixes might be. You can do a quick search on the internet. At any rate, this was a really fun project that our students tend to like quite a bit because it's playing with clay, and who doesn't like to play with clay? So I hope you have a lot of fun with it, and thank you for joining me today.
There are several opportunities to extend this second lesson, the science of seeds. In spring, students can plant their own seedlings using throwaway materials like paper egg cartons, toilet or paper towel roll sections, folded newspaper cups, or K-cups and old plastic food containers with poked drain holes. Consider selling these starter plants as a fundraiser as a school function event. Once the last frost of the year has passed, those remaining plants can be added to a raised bed garden outside. If the class takes place in the fall, seedlings can be grown into adult plants indoors with continued transplanting when necessary. In fall, if your class has an established garden, seeds can be harvested. Sunflowers or coneflowers are especially great starter flowers for seed harvesting, and they are useful subjects when discussing plants that are good for creating rest spots for pollinators, habitat resources for nearby wildlife, and food and aesthetic resources for humans. Field trips to Agway Farm Supply or garden stores, educational farms, or to local crop farms can also be arranged to explore seeds most important to the region where you live. Carrie Fowler's Seeds on Ice book about the Svalbard Seed Vault is a great picture compendium to go along with the Seed Vault discussions. He has also produced other interesting Seed Vault media on his website, Carrie Fowler, and his TED Talk, Can We Preserve Diversity for the Future?, which is another great resource for sparking discussion about the importance of diversity. We hope you enjoyed our quick lesson on the Intro to Urban Agriculture. Let's get growing. For more information on the Urban Agriculture Field Experiences lesson plan, please visit www.lehighconservation.org or follow us on our Facebook, Instagram, or YouTube pages. Thanks for watching, and be sure to check out the rest of the videos in the Urban Agriculture Lesson Plan series.